At my daughter's wedding, the groom said, "Let's keep speeches short, old man." I just smiled and spoke one sentence. "Everything you see here belongs to me." Everyone laughed until the DJ stopped the music. Police arrived. But 24 hours earlier, I'd discovered something that would destroy this wedding and save my daughter's life. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and comment which wedding tradition you think should be banned. My name is Cyrus Hale, and I'm 63 years old. That morning started like any father's dream. I stood in front of my bedroom mirror, adjusting the charcoal gray suit I'd bought specifically for this day. The fabric felt expensive under my fingers, smooth and perfectly tailored. My late wife Celeste would have cried seeing our daughter Vivienne finally getting married. Celeste passed 3 years ago from cancer, and not a single day went by without me missing her laugh, her advice, her way of making everything feel manageable. The wedding was costing me $180,000. Every single dollar came from my pocket. The venue, the flowers, the food, the photographer, the band, everything. I didn't mind spending the money. Vivienne was my only child, my entire world, after Celeste died. I built my commercial real estate business from nothing, worked 70-hour weeks for 30 years, and every sacrifice was for moments like this, to give my daughter the perfect wedding day. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Vivienne's name lit up the screen. "Good morning, sweetheart," I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. Emotions had been hitting me in waves all morning. "Dad, I just wanted to say thank you." Her voice sounded strange, tight, like she was forcing the words out. "Thank you for everything, for loving me, for supporting me, for this beautiful day." Something in her tone made my chest tighten, but I pushed the feeling away. Wedding day nerves, I told myself. "I love you more than anything, Vivi," I said, using the nickname I'd called her since she was 3 years old. The line went quiet for a moment. "I know, Dad, I know." After we hung up, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the framed photo on my dresser. Vivienne at 8 years old, missing her 2 front teeth, grinning at the camera in a flower girl dress from my brother's wedding. That day she'd grabbed my hand and said, "Daddy, will you walk me down the aisle when I get married?" I'd promised her I would give her the perfect wedding. I'd promised I would always protect her. The venue was an hour drive north, a place called Silverstone Manor, in the wine country. 300-year-old estate. Massive gardens, imported marble fountain in the courtyard. I'd rented the entire property for 3 days. Vivienne deserved something spectacular, something she would remember forever. I grabbed my car keys and headed out the door, completely unaware that in less than 12 hours, I would be standing in that same ballroom, watching police officers drag the groom away in handcuffs. The drive to Silverstone Manor took me through rolling hills covered in grapevines. The September sun was already warm at 9 in the morning, and the sky stretched out perfectly blue without a single cloud. Other cars filled with wedding guests drove ahead of me, their brake lights flashing as we turned onto the long private road leading to the estate. I could see the manor's stone towers rising above the trees, flags snapping in the breeze from the rooftop. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary. Pride and anxiety mixed together in my stomach. The parking area was filling up fast when I arrived. Luxury vehicles everywhere, BMWs, Mercedes, even a Bentley that belonged to my business partner. Valets in white jackets rushed between cars, taking keys and handing out claim tickets. I parked my own car in the reserved family section, a black Range Rover that Vivienne had helped me pick out last year. "Dad, you need something that says successful but not flashy," she told me at the dealership. I stepped out and straightened my tie, taking a deep breath of the warm air that smelled like roses and freshly cut grass. The manor's entrance was decorated with white ribbon and enormous arrangements of cream-colored roses. I walked through the main doors into the foyer, and my breath caught. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, oil paintings on every wall. Staff members hurried past carrying champagne flutes and folded napkins. A wedding coordinator with a headset and clipboard rushed up to me. "Mr. Hale, perfect timing. Your daughter is in the bridal suite upstairs. Second door on the left." I thanked her and headed toward the staircase, but something made me pause. Voices came from a room off the main hallway. Male voices, low and urgent. The door was cracked open just slightly. I recognized one voice immediately. Brennan Wolfe, my soon-to-be son-in-law. Age 29, financial consultant, charming smile that had won Vivian's heart 18 months ago. They'd met at a charity fundraiser I'd hosted for the Children's Hospital. Brennan had impressed me that night with his knowledge of investment strategies and his attentive way of listening when I spoke. He'd seemed perfect for my daughter. "I told you, it's handled." Brennan's voice carried through the crack in the door. "Just get through today without making things weird." Another man responded, older, gravelly voice. "You're sure about the paperwork? No surprises?" Brennan laughed, but it wasn't the warm laugh I'd heard at family dinners. This laugh was cold, sharp. "Dad, relax. I've got everything under control. By tonight, we're set." My hand froze halfway to knocking on the door. Something about that conversation felt wrong, but I couldn't pin down exactly what. The word paperwork echoed in my head. Before I could think more about it, the door swung open fully. Brennan stood there, phone in hand, his face registering surprise for just a split second before transforming into that familiar, bright smile. "Cyrus!" Brennan stepped forward, hand extended for a shake. "I was just talking to my dad about the seating arrangements. You know how these things get complicated." He gestured behind him where an older man stood near the window, late 50s with silver hair and an expensive suit that didn't quite fit right across the shoulders. The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. "This is my father, Thaddeus." "Dad, this is Cyrus Hale, Vivian's father." Thaddeus walked over and offered his hand. His palm was damp when I shook it, and his grip released too quickly. Like touching me was unpleasant. "Finally meeting the man behind the magic," Thaddeus said. His voice was the gravelly one I'd heard through the door. "Brennan's told me so much about your success. Real estate empire, isn't that right?" Something about the way he said empire made it sound like an accusation rather than a compliment. "I've done well enough," I said carefully. My instincts were screaming that something was off, but I couldn't identify what exactly. Both men stood too close to each other, shoulders almost touching, like they were unified against me. "What paperwork were you discussing? Anything I should know about?" I kept my tone light, curious rather than suspicious. Brennan laughed again, that same cold sound from before. "Oh, you overheard that. Just boring insurance stuff for the honeymoon. Travel insurance, health coverage, you know how it is." He waved his hand dismissively. "Nothing that concerns the wedding." His eyes shifted to his father for just a fraction of a second, so quick I almost missed it. Thaddeus gave the smallest nod. "Right, well, I should go see Vivian," I said, taking a step toward the door. Brennan moved slightly, blocking my path without making it obvious. "Actually, Cyrus, she's in the middle of hair and makeup. Pretty strict no-entry zone right now. Bridesmaid orders." He grinned, but his jaw was tight. "Maybe give her another 30 minutes? We could grab coffee, talk about the ceremony timeline." Everything in me wanted to push past him and go upstairs anyway, but I stopped myself. This was Vivian's wedding day. She'd been planning every detail for 8 months. If she wanted private time before the ceremony, I should respect that. Still, my daughter had never been the type to ban me from anywhere. Even on prom night, she'd insisted I see her dress before she left the house. "Sure," I heard myself say. "Coffee sounds good." Brennan's shoulders relaxed immediately. He clapped me on the back, guiding me toward the hallway. "There's a great sitting room this way. The staff set up an espresso bar for guests." As we walked, I glanced back at Thaddeus. He was pulling out his phone, typing rapidly, his face twisted in concentration. The moment felt wrong, tasted wrong, but I followed Brennan anyway. The sitting room was decorated in deep burgundy and gold, with leather chairs arranged around a marble fireplace. Several. Guests were already there, sipping coffee and chatting about the ceremony. Brennan poured 2 cups from the silver service and handed me one. Cyrus, I want you to know how much I appreciate everything you've done, he said, settling into the chair across from me. This venue, the entire celebration, it's beyond generous. It's what any father would do, I said, watching Brennan over the rim of my coffee cup. He sat too straight in his chair, like someone had placed a steel rod down his spine. His fingers tapped against his cup in a rhythm that seemed anxious rather than relaxed. Vivienne is my whole world. Her happiness is all that matters to me. I meant every word, but saying them out loud in front of Brennan suddenly felt dangerous, like I'd revealed too much. Of course. Brennan nodded, but his eyes were focused somewhere past my shoulder. And you've built such an impressive portfolio. Vivienne mentioned you own properties all over the state. Commercial buildings, right? Office complexes, retail spaces. His tone was casual, but the questions felt deliberate, like he was checking facts against a list in his head. 32 properties, I answered slowly. Took me 35 years to build the business. Something made me add, all in a trust, actually. Set up properly with my attorneys years ago. I don't know why I said it. Maybe some protective instinct kicking in, warning me to establish boundaries. Brennan's smile flickered for just a moment. Smart. Very smart. He drank his coffee in one long gulp and stood up quickly. I should go check on the groomsmen. Make sure they're not getting into trouble at the bar already. He laughed, but it sounded forced. See you at the ceremony, Cyrus. 2:00 sharp. After he left, I sat alone in the leather chair, staring at the cold fireplace. The conversations around me faded into background noise. My mind kept replaying that overheard discussion. By tonight, we're set. Set for what? And why had Brennan's entire demeanor changed when I mentioned the trust? Maybe I was reading too much into things. Wedding day jitters affected everyone, not just the bride. Maybe Brennan was just nervous about becoming part of the family. I pulled out my phone and opened my email, scrolling through messages without really reading them. Then I saw something that made my blood go cold. An email I didn't remember sending, dated 3 months ago, addressed to my attorney Gerald Moss. The subject line read, Cancel prenuptial agreement draft. My finger hovered over the message, shaking slightly. I clicked it open. Gerald, I've reconsidered the prenup situation. Vivienne is right that it shows a lack of trust in her judgment. Please cancel the draft we discussed and do not proceed with any marriage contract. Family shouldn't start with legal protection. Thanks, Cyrus. I read it 3 times. Each word was something I would say, written in my casual style, even signed with my usual closing. But I had absolutely no memory of writing this email. None. I scrolled up to check the sent folder. There it was, sent from my account at 11:47 p.m. on June 18th. I tried to remember that night. June 18th was the evening Vivienne had brought Brennan over for dinner, when they'd announced they wanted a September wedding. My hands started sweating. I called Gerald immediately, not caring that it was Saturday morning. He answered on the 3rd ring. Cyrus, shouldn't you be getting ready for the wedding? His voice was cheerful, completely relaxed. I'm at the wedding, Gerald. I need to ask you something important. Did I really send you that email about canceling the prenup? The question came out harsh, more accusatory than I intended. Gerald went quiet on the other end. I could hear papers shuffling in the background. Yes, you sent it in June. I was surprised, honestly, because you'd been so insistent about protecting your assets, but the email came from your verified account, so I followed your instructions. My throat felt tight. Gerald, I never wrote that email. The words hung in the air between us, more paper shuffling faster now. That's impossible. It came from your personal email, the one you've had for 15 years. The security on that account is excellent. Pull up the email, I said, standing up from the chair and walking toward the windows. Outside, guests were gathering on the lawn, taking photos by the rose gardens. Everything looked perfect, beautiful, normal. Tell me exactly what the security log shows. Gerald typed something, and I heard him breathing heavily into the phone. It shows the email was sent from your home IP address, the one registered to your house in Oakmont Hills. My house, my own house. What time did you say it was sent? I asked, even though I already knew. 11:47 p.m. on June 18th. Gerald's voice had shifted now, concerned instead of casual. Cyrus, what's going on? I closed my eyes, thinking back to that dinner. Vivian and Brennan had stayed until almost midnight. We'd had wine, celebrated their engagement, talked about wedding plans. At some point, I'd gotten up to take a phone call from my business partner about a property deal in Sacramento. I'd been on that call for at least 45 minutes, leaving Vivian and Brennan alone in my study, where my computer sat on the desk, already logged into all my accounts because I worked from home most days. Gerald, is there any way to check who physically typed that email? Not just what account it came from, but who was actually at the keyboard? He hesitated. Not really. Once someone has access to your logged-in computer, there's no way to distinguish between you and them typing. The system just records it as you. That son of a... I stopped myself. Gerald, I need you to do something for me right now, this minute. My voice came out harder than I'd ever spoken to him before. I need you to pull every document related to my estate, my properties, my accounts. Check for any changes, any new signatures, anything that happened in the last 6 months that I should know about. Cyrus, I'm in the middle of my daughter's soccer game. Can this wait until Monday? Gerald asked. No, I said flatly. It absolutely cannot wait. Something is very wrong, and I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with before 2 o'clock today. The seriousness in my tone must have convinced him. All right, give me 20 minutes. I'll call you back. I hung up and stood staring out the window, watching Brennan walk across the lawn toward the manor. He was laughing with his groomsmen, 3 men I'd never met before today. His father, Thaddeus, walked beside him, and I saw Brennan lean close to whisper something. Thaddeus nodded, pulled out his phone again, and typed another message. 20 minutes felt like 3 hours. I paced around the sitting room, checking my phone every 30 seconds. Other guests came and went, making small talk I barely heard. Someone asked if I was nervous about giving my daughter away. I nodded and smiled, but inside my mind was racing through every interaction I'd had with Brennan over the past 18 months. Every dinner, every family gathering, every casual conversation. He'd asked a lot of questions about my business. I thought he was just showing interest, being a good future son-in-law. Now those questions felt different. How many properties did I own? What were they worth? Did I have partners, or was everything in my name? What happened to the business when I died? I'd answered everything honestly, proud to share my success with someone who seemed genuinely curious. My phone finally rang, Gerald's name on the screen. Tell me, I said instead of hello. Cyrus, we have a serious problem. His voice was tight, professional, the tone he used when delivering bad news to clients. I found 4 documents with your signature that I didn't prepare and didn't know existed. My legs felt weak. I sat down hard in the leather chair. What kind of documents? Gerald took a deep breath. The first one is a power of attorney, dated July 12th, giving Vivian authority over your financial accounts in case of medical emergency or incapacity. Standard enough, except I didn't draft it. Second is a quitclaim deed, transferring 3 of your Orange County properties into joint ownership with Vivian. That one was filed with the county clerk on August 3rd. I never signed any quitclaim deed, I said, but even as the words came out, doubt crept in. Had I signed papers at the house? Brennan had brought documents a few times, said they were related to wedding vendors, contracts for the caterer and the photographer. I'd signed them without reading carefully because I trusted him, because I trusted my daughter's choice. There's more, Gerald continued. Third document is an amendment to your will, removing the trust structure and converting everything to simple inheritance, meaning, when you die, everything passes directly to Vivian as your sole heir, with no protection, no conditions, no oversight. And in California, anything Vivian inherits during marriage becomes community property. His words hit me like physical blows, which means Brennan would own half of everything. And the fourth document? I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. Gerald's voice dropped lower. Life insurance policy. $2 million. You're listed as the policy holder, Vivian as the insured party, and Brennan Wolfe as the sole beneficiary. It was taken out 6 weeks ago through an online portal using your credit card information. The room spun. I gripped the armrest of the chair so hard my knuckles turned white. Gerald, my daughter has no idea she's insured for $2 million with her fiancé as the beneficiary, does she? The silence on the other end answered my question. Cyrus, I need to be very direct with you. This pattern, these documents, the timeline, this looks like financial exploitation at best. At worst, he trailed off. At worst what? I demanded. At worst, this looks like someone setting up a very profitable situation if something were to happen to Vivian after the marriage. My hands started shaking so badly, I nearly dropped the phone. The beautiful sitting room with its burgundy wallpaper and elegant furniture suddenly felt like a cage. Gerald, tell me I'm misunderstanding this. Tell me there's some reasonable explanation. But even as I said it, I knew there wasn't. The pieces were fitting together too perfectly, too deliberately. I wish I could, Gerald said quietly. But Cyrus, I've been practicing law for 32 years. I've seen this exact pattern before. Someone gains trust, gains access, then systematically positions themselves to benefit from either inheritance or insurance or both. The fact that the life insurance policy lists Vivian as the insured party instead of you is the biggest red flag I've ever seen. I stood up and walked to the window again, pressing my forehead against the cool glass. Outside, Brennan was posing for photos with his groomsmen near the fountain. He looked relaxed, happy, like a man about to marry the woman he loved. But now when I looked at him, all I could see was calculation. What would you do if this was your daughter? I asked Gerald. He didn't hesitate. I would stop the wedding immediately. I would call the police and show them everything. This isn't just about money anymore, Cyrus. If something happened to Vivian during a honeymoon accident, a car crash, anything that could look coincidental, Brennan walks away with $2 million. And given that his father seems involved based on what you overheard, this might be a family operation. The word operation made my stomach turn. I thought about Vivian upstairs, probably having her makeup done, excited about marrying this man. She had no idea she was walking into a trap. I need more evidence, I said, my mind racing. If I go to her right now with just this, she'll think I'm trying to ruin her wedding out of jealousy or control. She'll marry him anyway, out of spite. I knew my daughter. She was stubborn, independent, and she'd been defensive about Brennan from the start, like she expected me to disapprove. What are you thinking? Gerald asked. I could hear the worry in his voice. I'm thinking I need to know exactly who Brennan Wolfe really is. Not the version he's shown us, but the truth. Can you run a complete background check? Financial history? Previous relationships? Criminal record? Everything? Gerald was quiet for a moment. That would normally take several days, maybe a week. I don't have a week. I have 4 hours until the ceremony. My voice came out desperate now. Gerald, please. There has to be someone who can do this faster. He sighed heavily. I know a private investigator, former FBI agent who specializes in financial crimes. His name is Knox Brenner. He's expensive and he doesn't work weekends, but given the circumstances, let me call him. Where exactly are you right now? Silverstone Manor, about an hour north of the city in wine country. I gave him the full address. Tell your investigator I'll pay whatever he wants. Double his normal rate. Triple it. I don't care about the cost. Money meant nothing compared to my daughter's safety. Gerald promised to call me back within 10 minutes, and hung up. I stood there gripping my phone, watching Brennan through the window. He checked his watch, then said something to his father. Thaddeus nodded and walked toward the parking area. Where was he going? The ceremony was less than 4 hours away. I made a split-second decision and followed, keeping my distance, staying behind the hedgerows that lined the path. Thaddeus reached a black BMW in the parking lot, looked around to make sure no one was watching, then opened the trunk. He pulled out a leather briefcase, the expensive kind with combination locks. He clicked it open, pulled out papers, and held them up to the sunlight, examining them carefully. Even from 50 feet away, I could see official-looking seals and signatures. He smiled, satisfied with whatever he was seeing, then locked the briefcase and put it back in the trunk. My phone buzzed. Gerald calling back already. "Knox can be there in 35 minutes, he said as soon as I answered. "He's bringing his laptop and has access to databases most people don't even know exist. He said if there's anything to find on Brennan Wolfe, he'll find it within the hour. Tell him to meet me in the West Wing study. It's private, away from the main event spaces." I gave Gerald the specific location and hung up, then headed back inside the manor. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Everything looked the same as it had an hour ago. The flowers, the decorations, the smiling guests. But now it all felt like a stage set for something horrible. I found the study exactly where the wedding coordinator had mentioned earlier. Small room, wood paneling, a desk with a lamp, and most importantly, a door that locked from the inside. I sat down in the desk chair and tried to calm my breathing. My mind kept jumping to worst-case scenarios. What if Brennan had already done something to the honeymoon plans? They were flying to Bali tomorrow morning, some remote resort on a cliff overlooking the ocean, a place where accidents could happen easily. 32 minutes later, a knock came at the study door. 3 quick raps, then 2 slower ones. "Mr. Hale?" "Knox Brenner." I opened the door to find a man in his late 40s, wearing jeans and a black jacket, carrying a slim laptop bag. He didn't look like my idea of a private investigator. No trench coat, no stubble. Just an ordinary guy who could blend into any crowd. That was probably the point. "Thank you for coming on such short notice," I said, locking the door behind him. Knox set his laptop on the desk and opened it without wasting time on small talk. "Gerald filled me in on the basics. Your daughter's marrying a guy named Brennan Wolfe today, and you found suspicious financial documents with signatures you don't remember making, plus a life insurance policy on your daughter with the groom as beneficiary." "That's right." I pulled out my phone and showed him the email I supposedly sent canceling the prenup. This came from my account, from my house, but I never wrote it. Brennan was there that night with access to my computer. Knox nodded, already typing rapidly on his keyboard. "Okay, let's start with the basics. Brennan Wolfe, age 29, works as a financial consultant. You got a middle name?" I realized I didn't know. In 18 months of dating my daughter, meeting him dozens of times, I'd never heard his middle name. No idea. Knox's eyebrows went up slightly. "That's interesting. Most parents know their future son-in-law's full legal name." His screen filled with search results, database interfaces, records I'd never seen before. His fingers moved fast across the keyboard, opening windows, cross-referencing information. Here we go. Brennan Alexander Wolfe, born March 15, 1996 in Nevada. Father Thaddeus James Wolfe, mother Christina Wolfe, deceased 2008. Knox scrolled through the information. Brennan went to State College, graduated with a business degree, worked at 3 different financial firms in 5 years. That's a lot of movement for someone his age. He clicked into employment records. "Wait, this is weird." "What?" I leaned closer to see the screen. Knox pointed at a series of dates. He was fired from his first job after 8 months. Reason listed as violation of client confidentiality. Second job, he lasted 11 months before being let go for unauthorized access to client accounts. Third job, same pattern, lasted just under a year. Fired for attempting to manipulate client investment portfolios without authorization. My stomach twisted into knots. So he has a history of financial misconduct. Knox's face was grim. More than that, he has a history of targeting people's money and getting caught. But here's what really concerns me. He opened another database, this one showing court records. Brennan was sued in civil court 2 years ago by a woman named Lydia Patterson. She claimed he fraudulently convinced her elderly father to sign over power of attorney, then drained $180,000 from the father's retirement accounts before the family caught on. What happened with the case? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Knox scrolled down to the resolution. Settled out of court. The Patterson family got their money back, Brennan admitted no wrongdoing, and the whole thing was sealed. But get this, Thaddeus Wolfe co-signed the settlement agreement. He paid back the $180,000 on his son's behalf. The exact amount I'd spent on this wedding. The exact amount. That couldn't be coincidence. Knox, dig deeper into Thaddeus. I overheard him and Brennan talking this morning, and Thaddeus was in the parking lot earlier with a briefcase full of documents. Knox switched databases again, pulling up financial records, business filings, bankruptcy documents. Oh, this is bad, Knox muttered, reading through the information. Thaddeus Wolfe filed for bankruptcy in 2019. Lost everything in a failed real estate scheme, ironically enough. Owed creditors over $600,000. He's been working odd jobs since then, nothing stable. And here's something interesting. Brennan and Thaddeus share a bank account. Joint checking account opened 6 months ago. 6 months ago, I repeated, right around the time Brennan started dating Vivian. Knox nodded, clicking through bank statements that appeared on his screen. I didn't ask how he had access to private banking information. I didn't want to know. The account started with a balance of $340. Look at the deposits over the past 6 months. He turned the laptop so I could see better. Small deposits. $200 here, $500 there. Nothing remarkable. Then 3 months ago, a deposit for $8,000. 2 months ago, another $12,000. Last month, $15,000. Where is that money coming from? I asked, though dread was already building in my chest. Knox traced the deposit sources. They're all transfers from credit cards. Different cards, different banks, but all in Brennan's name. He's maxing out credit cards and depositing the cash into this joint account with his father. He pulled up credit reports next. Brennan has 7 credit cards, all of them completely maxed out. Total debt is $340,000. He's been making minimum payments only, and 3 of the cards are currently in default. I sat down heavily in the chair. $340,000 in debt. No wonder he needs my money. Knox kept digging, his expression growing darker. There's more. I'm cross-referencing Brennan's name with marriage records across multiple states. His fingers flew across the keyboard. Here, Brennan Wolfe was engaged 2 years ago to a woman named Autumn Chen in Los Angeles. No relation to you, different Chen family entirely. What happened? I asked, leaning forward. Knox opened a series of social media archives, cached web pages, deleted profiles. The engagement lasted 4 months, and then it was suddenly called off. I'm searching for news articles or public records about why. He typed for another minute, then stopped. Found it. Small mention in a community newspaper. Autumn's father, Gordon Chen, discovered that Brennan had forged his signature on loan applications using Gordon's business as collateral. The pattern was becoming sickeningly clear. Let me guess. Gordon Chen is wealthy. Knox nodded. Owns a chain of medical supply companies worth approximately $30 million. The engagement ended 2 weeks after Gordon discovered the fraud. He didn't press charges because Brennan's father paid back the attempted loan amounts and begged for mercy, claiming Brennan had a gambling addiction and needed help instead of jail time. But Brennan doesn't have a gambling addiction, I said slowly. Knox shook his head. No evidence of that at all. No casino visits, no online gambling accounts, no betting history. It was just an excuse, a way to frame Brennan as sick instead of criminal. Make him look like a victim of his own problems instead of a predator. My phone buzzed with a text from Vivian. Dad, where are you? I want you to see my dress before the ceremony. Come up to the bridal suite. I stared at the message, my heart breaking. She had no idea. She thought she was about to marry someone who loved her. Knox, I need everything you can find in the next 30 minutes. Previous relationships, any other women he targeted, anything that shows this is a pattern. Knox's face was serious. Mr. Hale, you already have enough to stop this wedding. The life insurance policy alone is probable cause for police involvement. I stood up and paced the small study. If I go to Vivian right now with this information, she'll defend him. She'll say I'm jealous, that I can't let her go, that I'm making things up because I disapprove of her choices. She's stubborn like her mother was. She'll marry him anyway, just to prove me wrong. Then what's your plan? Knox asked. I thought about it, turning over options in my mind. I need to expose him publicly in a way that he can't deny and she can't rationalize away. I need him to reveal himself. Knox studied me for a moment. That's risky. If he's as dangerous as these patterns suggest, cornering him publicly could make him volatile. That's why I want police there when it happens, I said, the plan forming as I spoke. Can you get law enforcement involved based on what you found? Knox closed his laptop and pulled out his phone. I have contacts in financial crimes units across 3 states. Give me 15 minutes. He stepped into the hallway to make calls, leaving me alone in the study. I texted Vivian back. On my way, sweetheart. Can't wait to see you. Each word felt like a lie. I wasn't on my way. I was sitting in a locked study, discovering that the man she loved was a con artist who'd targeted her specifically for her inheritance. How was I supposed to tell her that? How was I supposed to watch her heart break? Knox came back into the study, phone still in his hand. I've got a detective from the fraud division on standby. Her name is Detective Patricia Raines. She's reviewing everything I'm sending her right now. She says if the evidence holds up, she can have officers at the venue within 90 minutes. 90 minutes puts us at 12:30. The ceremony starts at 2 o'clock. I checked my watch. It was barely past 11. Knox, keep digging. There has to be more. If Brennan and his father have done this before, there's got to be a trail. Knox sat back down at the desk and opened his laptop again. I'm going to search for any other women Brennan dated in the past 5 years. Social media, dating apps, archived profiles, anything that might show a pattern. I finally forced myself to leave the study and head upstairs to see Vivian. Each step felt heavier than the last. The grand staircase was lined with white roses and trailing ivy. Guests passed me going the other direction, commenting on how beautiful everything looked. I smiled and nodded, playing the role of proud father, while inside I was screaming. The bridal suite door was open. I could hear female voices inside, laughter, champagne glasses clinking. I knocked softly and stepped in. The room was enormous, decorated in cream and gold, with mirrors covering one entire wall. Vivian stood in the center wearing her wedding dress, and despite everything I'd learned in the past hour, my breath caught. She looked exactly like Celeste had on our wedding day, the same dark hair swept up elegantly, the same graceful way of holding herself. "Dad!" Vivian turned and her whole face lit up. 4 bridesmaids surrounded her, holding champagne flutes, their makeup already perfect. "What do you think?" She spun slowly, the dress flowing around her like water. It was a simple design, no excessive beading or layers, just elegant white silk that fit her perfectly. Celeste would have cried seeing this. "You're the most beautiful bride I've ever seen," I said and meant it completely. My voice cracked on the last word. Vivian's smile faltered slightly. "Dad, are you okay? You look upset." I couldn't tell her. Not yet. Not like this, surrounded by her friends, in her perfect moment before everything shattered. "Just emotional," I lied. "Missing your mother. Wishing she could be here to see this." Vivian's eyes filled with tears. "Me too. Every minute today I keep thinking about what she'd say, what advice she'd give me." She walked over and took my hands, but I know she'd be happy. She'd love Brennan. He's everything she wanted for me. Stable, successful, kind. Each word was a knife in my chest because I knew the truth. Brennan was none of those things. "Vivian, sweetheart, can we talk privately for just a minute?" I asked quietly. The bridesmaids exchanged glances. One of them, a tall redhead named Jasmine, spoke up. "Mr. Hale, we're kind of on a tight schedule. Hair, makeup, photos, it's all coordinated down to the minute." Vivian squeezed my hands. "Dad, can it wait until after the ceremony? Whatever you need to say, we'll have plenty of time at the reception." "No," I wanted to shout. "We don't have time. In 3 hours, you'll be legally tied to a man who sees you as nothing but a bank account." But I looked at her hopeful face, her excitement, and I couldn't destroy it without solid proof she couldn't deny. "Of course," I heard myself say. "It can wait." Vivian hugged me tightly. "I love you, Dad. Thank you for everything. For this dress, this venue, this entire perfect day. I know it cost a fortune." "You're worth every penny," I whispered into her hair. She pulled back, smiling again. "Now get out of here. You're not supposed to see the bride before the ceremony anyway. Bad luck." She laughed and shooed me toward the door. I left, closing it behind me, and stood in the hallway, trying to control my breathing. My phone buzzed. Text from Knox. "Found something major. Get back to the study now." I practically ran down the stairs, nearly colliding with a waiter carrying a tray of champagne glasses. The study door was unlocked. Knox stood by the desk, his laptop open, his face pale. "What did you find?" I asked, shutting the door behind me. Knox turned the laptop toward me. On the screen was a social media profile, archived from 3 years ago. A young woman's smiling face filled the profile picture. Her name was listed as Isla Monroe. "Who is she?" I asked. Knox's voice was grim. "She's someone Brennan dated for 6 months in 2022. Daughter of a commercial airline pilot who'd invested well and was worth about $4 million. Dated past tense, I noted. What happened? Knox clicked to another page, a news article from a local Colorado newspaper. Dated October 2022. The headline read, "Local woman, 27, dies in hiking accident." My blood went cold. Knox continued. Isla Monroe fell from a cliff during a hiking trip with her boyfriend. The boyfriend, unnamed in the article due to the ongoing investigation, claimed she slipped while taking photos near the edge. "Brennan," I whispered. Knox nodded. The investigation concluded it was an accidental death. No charges were filed. But here's what makes it relevant to your situation. He pulled up an insurance document. Isla had a life insurance policy for $1.5 million. Her boyfriend was listed as the beneficiary. The policy had been taken out just 2 months before her death. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the desk to steady myself. "Are you telling me Brennan killed his previous girlfriend for insurance money?" Knox held up his hand. "I'm telling you the pattern is there. I can't prove murder. The police investigated and found nothing suspicious. But look at the timeline. They started dating in March 2022. In June, he took out the life insurance policy on her. In October, she died. In November, he collected $1.5 million. Where's that money now?" I demanded. Knox pulled up bank records. Gone. Completely spent within 14 months. He paid off his father's bankruptcy debts, bought a luxury car that he later sold, and gambled away most of the rest, despite claiming he doesn't have a gambling problem. By January 2024, he was broke again and in debt. I felt sick, physically sick. So he found Vivian, another wealthy father's daughter, and he's following the exact same pattern. Knox's expression was dark. The timeline matches perfectly. Started dating her 18 months ago. Slowly gained your trust. Got access to your home, your computer, your financial information, created documents to position himself legally, and took out a life insurance policy on her 6 weeks ago. "They're going to Bali tomorrow," I said, my voice shaking. "Some remote resort on a cliff overlooking the ocean." Knox's face went even paler. "Mr. Hale, I need to contact Detective Rains immediately. This isn't just fraud anymore. Your daughter might be in actual physical danger. He pulled out his phone and dialed. Patricia, it's Knox. I need you here now, not in 90 minutes. Now. I could hear a woman's voice on the other end, asking questions. Knox explained quickly. Previous girlfriend died in a hiking accident after he took out life insurance on her. Current fiancé has a similar policy, and they're flying to a foreign country with cliffside resorts tomorrow. Yes, I understand it's circumstantial, but the pattern is undeniable. More conversation, then Knox hung up. She's sending 2 officers in plainclothes immediately. They'll be here in 40 minutes. She's coming herself with a warrant for Brennan's financial records. My watch showed 11:52. The ceremony was at 2 o'clock. Less than 3 hours? Knox, I need everything organized. Every piece of evidence. Every document. Every bank record. I'm going to confront him, but I need it to be ironclad. No room for him to talk his way out. Knox was already compiling files on his laptop. I'm creating a complete dossier right now, but Mr. Hale, confronting him before the ceremony is dangerous. If he feels trapped, there's no telling what he might do. I can't let my daughter marry him, I said firmly. Even if the police arrest him after the wedding, the marriage would still be legal. I need to stop it before the vows. Knox nodded slowly. Then we do it smart. We wait until the police arrive. We set up the confrontation in a public space where he can't run and can't hurt anyone, and we make sure everything is recorded. A knock at the study door made us both jump. Mr. Hale, it's the wedding coordinator. We need you for photos in 15 minutes. I opened the door a crack. The coordinator stood there with her clipboard, looking stressed. The photographer wants family portraits before the ceremony. Bride's side at 12:30, groom's side at 12:45. I'll be there, I promised. She hurried off, and I closed the door again. Knox was typing rapidly. I'm sending everything to Detective Rains right now. The previous girlfriend's death, the insurance policies, the forged documents, Brennan's financial history, all of it. When she gets here, she'll have grounds for immediate intervention. My phone rang. Gerald's name on the screen. I answered. Cyrus, I've been going through more of your accounts. I found wire transfers you need to know about. My stomach dropped. What transfers? Gerald's voice was tight with anger. Someone transferred $85,000 from your business operating account to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. 3 separate transfers over the past month. $25,000, $30,000, and $30,000. I never authorized any offshore transfers, I said, putting the phone on speaker so Knox could hear. I know you didn't. The authorization came through your online banking portal, but the IP address traces back to a coffee shop in downtown Oakland, not your home or office. Someone was using public Wi-Fi to avoid detection. Knox was already typing, tracking the information. What's the account number for the offshore account? Gerald read it off. Knox searched his databases, his face growing darker. That account is registered to a shell corporation called Wolf Holdings, LLC. Guess who the registered agent is? He didn't wait for me to answer. Thaddeus James Wolf. The pieces were all connecting, father and son working together, systematically stealing from me while preparing to marry Vivian and take everything else. Gerald, freeze all my accounts right now, I ordered. Everything. Business, personal, investment, all of it. Nothing moves without my physical signature and in-person verification at the bank. Gerald hesitated. Cyrus, that's going to cause problems. You have automatic payments, payroll for your employees, vendor contracts. I don't care. Freeze everything. If Brennan realizes I'm onto him, he might try to drain whatever he can reach. Gerald agreed and hung up. Knox checked his watch. Officers will be here in 20 minutes. Detective Rains in 45. We need to decide exactly how this is going to play out. I thought about it, turning over options. The reception dinner has a speaking portion, traditional father of the bride speech, then groom's father, then the couple. It's scheduled for 6 p.m., after the ceremony, after photos, after cocktail hour. That's too late. Knox nodded. Way too late. They'd be legally married by then. What if we move the speeches to before the ceremony? I suggested. During the cocktail hour? Tell the coordinator there's a schedule change. Knox considered it. That could work. Public setting. Lots of witnesses. You have the microphone and everyone's attention, but the police need to be in position first. The officers arrived at 12:35, dressed in formal attire that made them blend perfectly with the wedding guests. Detective Patricia Raines showed up 10 minutes later, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s wearing a navy dress. She reviewed everything Knox had compiled, her expression growing grimmer with each page. This is enough for arrest on fraud charges immediately. The connection to the deceased girlfriend in Colorado gives us reasonable cause for deeper investigation. I need to expose him first, I said. In front of everyone? My daughter needs to see who he really is, not just hear it from police. Detective Raines studied my face. Mr. Hale, I understand your reasoning, but if he runs or becomes violent, we're responsible for everyone's safety. I nodded toward the two plainclothes officers standing near the door. Your men will be right there. I just need 5 minutes at the microphone. She agreed reluctantly. We'll position ourselves around the room. The moment you give the signal, we move in. I checked my watch. 1:15 p.m. 45 minutes until the ceremony. I found the wedding coordinator in the hallway, frantically directing staff members carrying flower arrangements. I need to make a change to the schedule, I told her. She looked panicked. Mr. Hale, everything is timed precisely. We can't. I need the speeches moved up. Before the ceremony instead of during dinner. Her mouth opened to protest, but something in my expression stopped her. Is everything okay? I just stared at her until she nodded nervously. I'll make the announcement. We'll do speeches at 1:45 in the garden area, where cocktails were supposed to be served. Perfect. Public space, lots of guests, nowhere for Brennan to hide. I went to the garden area and found the DJ setting up his equipment. I need you to do something for me, I said, pulling out my wallet. I handed him $5,000 in cash, money I'd brought for tips and emergencies. His eyes widened. What do you need? I explained exactly what I wanted. He looked uncertain but pocketed the cash and nodded. Guests started gathering at 1:40. The garden was beautiful, with white chairs arranged in a semicircle around a small platform, where the DJ had set up speakers and a microphone. Vivian appeared in her wedding dress, confused by the schedule change but smiling. Brennan walked beside her, his hand possessively on her waist. Thaddeus followed behind them, looking uncomfortable. The coordinator announced through the microphone that the father of the bride wanted to say a few words before the ceremony. Guests settled into chairs, holding champagne glasses, expecting a sweet emotional speech. I saw Knox standing near the back, his phone recording everything. Detective Raines and her officers were positioned at 3 different exits. I took the microphone, and my hands were steadier than I expected. Thank you all for being here today to celebrate Vivian and Brennan. Applause. Vivian beamed at me from the front row. Brennan's smile was confident, arrogant even. I spent $180,000 on this wedding. Every detail, every flower, every piece of food you'll eat tonight. All of it paid for by me. More applause, some laughter. Brennan raised his champagne glass toward me in a mock toast. Then he stood up, and I knew what was coming. That's very generous, Robert. But let's keep speeches short, old man. His voice carried across the garden, condescending and dismissive. Several guests gasped at his rudeness. Vivian's face went red with embarrassment. Brennan, sit down, she hissed, but I just smiled. You're right, Brennan. I'll keep this very short. I looked directly at him. Everything you see here belongs to me. Laughter rippled through the crowd. They thought I was making a joke about paying for the wedding. Brennan laughed too, sitting back down, completely relaxed. That's when I nodded to the DJ. The music cut off completely. Silence fell over the garden. I mean that literally, I continued. This venue, I own it. Bought it 6 months ago as an investment property. The catering company I own 60%. The flower shop that did all these arrangements, mine. The photography company. I'm a silent partner. Confused murmurs now. Vivian's smile was fading. But that's not what I'm really talking about. I'm talking about the properties you've been planning to steal, Brennan. The $85,000 you already transferred to your father's offshore account. The forged documents giving you power of attorney over my assets. Brennan stood up fast, his face draining of color. This is insane. You're ruining our wedding with paranoid delusions. But his voice cracked on the last word. I pulled out my phone and held it up. Knox, project it. Knox connected to the DJ's system. The large screen behind me, meant for showing wedding photos, suddenly displayed bank records, emails, insurance documents. Life insurance policy on my daughter for $2 million, I said, my voice echoing through the speakers. Taken out 6 weeks ago. Beneficiary, Brennan Alexander Wolfe. Vivian stood up now, staring at the screen. What is he talking about? She asked Brennan, her voice shaking. Baby, I can explain, Brennan started, but I kept going. Here's another interesting document. The death certificate of Isla Monroe, Brennan's previous girlfriend. Died in a hiking accident in Colorado 3 years ago. Also had a life insurance policy with Brennan as beneficiary. He collected $1.5 million. The screen showed Isla's smiling face, then the newspaper article about her death. Vivian's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God! Brennan lunged toward the platform, but the two plainclothes officers moved fast, blocking his path. You can't prove anything, he shouted. His careful facade was completely gone now, replaced by rage and desperation. That was an accident. Isla fell. I had nothing to do with it. Then explain the $340,000 in credit card debt, I said calmly. Explain the forged signatures on my financial documents. Explain why you sent an email from my account canceling the prenup. Explain the divorce attorney appointment you scheduled for next month to begin asset division proceedings. Every word hit him like a physical blow. Guests were standing now, phones out, recording everything. Thaddeus tried to slip away toward the parking lot, but Detective Raines stepped in front of him. Mr. Wolfe, I need you to stay right where you are. She held up her badge. I'm Detective Raines, Financial Crimes Division. We have warrants for both you and your son. 2 uniformed officers appeared from inside the manor, walking quickly toward Brennan. Brennan's eyes darted around, looking for escape routes, but he was surrounded. This is entrapment. He set me up. He pointed at me wildly. That old man manipulated everything to make me look guilty. Detective Raines pulled out handcuffs. Brennan Wolfe, you're under arrest for fraud, identity theft, and attempted grand larceny. You have the right to remain silent. Vivian! Brennan shouted as the officers grabbed his arms. Tell them this is crazy. Tell them your father is Lyon. But Vivian was staring at the screen, at the evidence, at the life insurance policy with her name on it. Tears streamed down her face, ruining her perfect makeup. You were going to kill me, she whispered. On our honeymoon, you were going to kill me. No, baby, no, I love you. Brennan struggled against the officers, but they had him secured. It was just insurance, standard stuff. Your father is twisting everything. But his voice was desperate now, and everyone could hear the lie in it. Thaddeus was being handcuffed too, silent and resigned, like he'd known this day would eventually come. The officers led both men through the garden toward the parking lot, where police cars waited. Brennan kept shouting, his voice fading as they dragged him away. You'll never prove murder. Isla's death was ruled an accident. This won't stick. The 200 guests stood in stunned silence, watching the disaster unfold. Vivian collapsed. I dropped the microphone and ran to catch her before she hit the ground. Her bridesmaids rushed over, helping me lower her into a chair. Dad, she sobbed into my shoulder. Dad, you were right. You tried to warn me, and I didn't listen. I held her while she cried, her wedding dress crumpling around us, all that expensive silk ruined by tears and dirt. You're safe now, I whispered. That's all that matters. You're safe. Around us, guests were leaving quietly, embarrassed, shocked, pulling out phones to call friends and family with the story. The wedding coordinator stood frozen near the platform, her clipboard hanging limp in her hand. Knox approached us carefully. "Mr. Hale, Detective Raines needs brief statements from both of you. Can you manage that?" I nodded. Vivian pulled back, wiping her eyes, mascara streaking down her face. "I need to know everything," she said, her voice steadier now. "Every detail of what he was planning." Over the next hour, sitting in the Manor's library, we told her everything. The forged documents, the stolen money, the pattern with previous girlfriends, the life insurance policy, the planned honeymoon to a remote cliffside resort. She listened without interrupting, her face growing paler with each revelation. "I ignored the signs," she finally said. "He isolated me from my friends. He got angry when I wanted to spend time with you. He convinced me you were controlling, that you couldn't let me grow up. Classic manipulation, and I fell for every bit of it." I took her hand. "He was good at what he does. Professional con artists spend years perfecting their craft. This wasn't your fault." Detective Raines joined us, looking satisfied. "We've taken both men into custody. Brennan's already talking, trying to blame everything on his father. Thaddeus is staying silent and demanding a lawyer. We found the briefcase in Thaddeus's car with more forged documents, including an updated will allegedly signed by you last week, leaving everything to Vivian upon your death." 3 weeks later, I sat in my living room with Vivian, drinking coffee and watching the morning news. The story had made national headlines. Con artist arrested at own wedding after elaborate plot exposed. Brennan and Thaddeus both faced multiple charges across 3 states. Isla Monroe's family had pushed for her case to be reopened. New evidence suggested she hadn't fallen accidentally, that someone had pushed her. Vivian had moved back home temporarily while she recovered. Therapy twice a week, processing the trauma, learning to trust her instincts again. "I kept thinking about Bailey," she said quietly, staring into her coffee cup. "About that cliffside resort, about how easy it would have been for him to stage an accident. I would have died thinking my husband loved me. But you didn't," I said firmly. "You're here. You're alive. You're learning and growing stronger every day." She looked at me, her eyes clear now, no longer clouded by manipulation. "Mom would have seen through him immediately, wouldn't she?" I smiled, remembering Celeste's incredible ability to read people. Within 5 minutes of meeting him. "I miss her," Vivian said. "Every day I miss her." I pulled her into a hug. "Me too, sweetheart. But she's still guiding us. That promise I made to her before she died, to always protect you, that's what gave me the strength to investigate. She's still taking care of us." We sat in comfortable silence, the morning sun streaming through the windows, warming the room. My phone buzzed with a message from Gerald. The civil lawsuit was proceeding smoothly. We were recovering the stolen $85,000 plus damages. The forged documents had been nullified. All my assets were secure again. More importantly, my daughter was safe. The $180,000 I spent on a wedding that never happened was the best money I ever wasted. Vivian picked up her coffee cup, a small smile on her face. "You know what's weird? I feel grateful. Grateful it happened before the wedding instead of after. Grateful you cared enough to dig deeper. Grateful I get a second chance at life." She paused. "And grateful that I have a father who loved me enough to risk making me hate him to keep me safe." "I would risk anything for you," I said simply. "Always have, always will." She squeezed my hand. "I know, Dad. I finally know." Outside, birds sang in the garden Celeste had planted, the same garden I'd maintained for 3 years as a memorial to her. Life continued, messy and complicated and precious. My daughter was alive, sitting next to me, learning to trust again. That was everything. If this story gave you chills, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Share in the comments if you've ever had to expose someone's true intentions to protect someone you love. For another story about family betrayal and revenge, click on the video on your screen. Thank you for watching.